Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rechak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Kings, the 9th chapter, and pretty much, continuing from where we left off in the in the 8th chapter. At this point, we now start to see, things pick up a bit more, right? We're dealing with Jehu, who is now the next individual we sort of focus on here a bit. So, this is 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 1. And Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets, and said unto him, Gird up thy loins, and take this box of oil in thine hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. Now keep in mind, right, there's been mention of the prophets, the sons of the prophets, the children of the prophets here as we read, as we've been reading. And that's because at this time you did have a lot of different prophets, right? A company of prophets, so to speak. And they were typically like dwelling or around where Elisha was, but they were sort of together there, right? And So he tells us this prophet. He says, "Hey, go take this oil, right?" And the saying "gird up thy loins" is one that was in the sense of like when one was about to work or run or do something like that, they would actually like roll up the bottom of like their garment up into the waist or their belt, so to speak. And this way they would be able to actually run without restrictions, right? Or move more freely. So that's where you get that saying of like girding up your loins. So anyway, it says here, and when thou comest thither, so go to Ramoth Gilead, and when you get there, look out there Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in and make him arise up from among his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil and pour it upon his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then open the door and flee, and tarry not. So once you go there, you're basically going to anoint Jehu, right? But you're not going to really make it too direct to him. You're going to try to get him there. When it's just you and him in the inner chamber, anoint him quickly, tell him the Lord has appointed him king over Israel, and just book it, dip out of there. All right, don't wait, don't add that, just leave. Now, this is interesting because let's see if we can cross-reference this. Here we go. So when you go to 1 Kings, the 19th chapter, we see here this was something the Lord told Elijah, right, that he should do. When you read here in 1 Kings 19 and 15, right? And the Lord said unto Elijah, Go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when thou comest, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu the son of Nimshi shalt thou anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Meholah shalt thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. So what ended up happening here was that Elisha took on, right, he continued in the stead of Elijah, and it is during Elisha's time he ends up technically anointing Jehu, right? It was by his command to the other prophet, and also in a sense, right, almost like indirectly, Hazael as well, when he had that conversation with him in the 8th chapter, and told him that he would be king over Syria, which ended up having Hazael go and take out Ben-Hadad and then become king over Syria, right? So this was really fulfilled with during the time of Elisha. He sort of carried that out. And so continuing here, back in 2 Kings 9 and 4. So the young man, even the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead. And when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting. And he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, Unto which of all us? And he said, To thee, O captain. So you can imagine the captain sitting there. There's more than one of them, right? So he says, I have an errand for you, O captain. Jehu is like, well, which one? And this I have an errand for thee means like I have a message for you, right? When you go into this word errand, I believe in the Hebrew it's let's see, it might be dabar. Yep. So the Hebrew is dabar, which means speak or speech or word, right? As you can see here, speaking thing, business, occupation, matter, case, words. So basically I have something to tell you, right? There's a message for you. So he singles out Jehu, and he arose and went into the house. And he poured the oil on his head and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, power of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of Israel, even over Israel. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord Yahweh at the hand of Jezebel. Because remember, Jezebel was slaying the prophets of the Lord, right? And this was when Obadiah basically went and hid 100 of them in a cave. I think, yeah, and it was like 50 by 50. And he ended up like providing water and food, bread, and so on and so forth. So Jezebel had a lot of blood on her hands from not only the prophets of the Lord, but like those that weren't, you can imagine those that weren't down with the wickedness and the idolatry that she was doing, right? Even going as far as having Naboth put to death, right, wrongfully, just because of him refusing to give up his land to Ahab. So there was going to be payback for that, which the Lord did say. Verse 8, For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And him that pisseth against the wall is all the males, and in particular the males, because they are the ones who carry the seed. So if all the males are wiped out, then that line, that lineage, or that house would not be able to continue, right? And him that is shut up and left in Israel. So in other words, anybody from the house of Ahab, whether they are free or whether they're in prison, like a bondman or whatnot, the Lord said he's gonna cut them off. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. So this is what the prophet told Jehu. And after he said that, opened the door and booked it. So, you know, let's read verse 11 and then we can speak on that. And then Jehu came forth to the servants of his Lord, and one said unto him, Is all well? Wherefore came this mad fellow to thee? And he said unto them, You know the man and his communication, right? So basically, you know how these guys are. Like they always basically are like the prophets, right? Like you know how they are. You know, they come, they have a message, they talk on, they ramble, they do these weird things. But so he was initially trying to sort of hide the details of it. You know, kind of like, don't worry about it. This is how you know how they are. And they said, It is false. Tell us now. In other words, you're hiding something. What did he actually tell you? You know, like ain't no his communication, nothing. What did he say to you? And he said, and they called him mad, right? But you can imagine why. You know, he just comes there. He says, I have a message for you, you know, and from the perspective of these other lords or these other servants, they just see Jehu and this prophet go into this inner room. And then maybe like some few minutes later, boom, you can imagine the doors fling open and this this prophet is out, you know, at full speed. He's gone. So to them, they're like, yo, these guys, man. Anyway, and they said, It is false. Tell us now. And he said, Thus and thus spake he to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, I have anointed thee king over Israel. And they hasted and took every man his garment and put it under him on the top of the stairs and blew the trumpets, saying, Jehu is king. So sort of like giving a presentation, preparation, rolling out the red carpet, so to speak, you know, for like Jehu as the king, right? So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now remember, as we read before, this Joram here is the son of Ahab, right, of the northern kingdom, otherwise known as Jehoram. Now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And we read this in the previous chapter, right? He went to war with the help of Ahaziah, and he ended up getting injured, Joram, that is, and so they retreated so he could heal of his wounds. So in healing, he came to Jezreel. And Jehu said, if it be your minds, then let none go forth, nor escape out of the city to go to tell it in Jezreel. So don't let anybody leave the city, right, which is Ramoth Gilead, to go and inform Joram of this news. So Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there. And Ahaziah, king of Judah, was come down to see Joram. And there stood a watchman in the tower of Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came, meaning Jehu and those that were with him. And he said, I see a company. And Joram said, take an horsemen and send to me them, and let them say, is it peace? So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, thus saith the king, is it peace? So are you coming in peace? You know, what's going on? And Jehu said, what is thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, now this meaning, you know, in other words, whether it's peace or not, what does that have to do with you? You know, well, what business is that with you? You know, like, just get back there, you know. And the watchman told, saying, the messenger came to them, but he cometh not again. He's not returning. And then he sent out a second on horseback, which came to them and said, thus saith the king, is it peace? And Jehu answered, what hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. So he told him the same thing as well. And the watchman told, saying, he also came unto them, and he cometh not again. So this one, what's going on here? And the driving is like the driving of Jehu, the son of Nimshi, for he driveth furiously. So driving meaning like remember, you can imagine being in a, sorry, there was no way to hide this. Anyway, so you can imagine being in a, let's see. Right. You can imagine being in a chariot, right? And you're controlling the chariot. That's the driving of it, right? So you're controlling the chariot. And he's like, you know, this guy, Jehu, you know, he drives furiously. You know, there's a certain way he drives, and it's like this like ferocious-ish, right, kind of way. And Joram said, make ready. And his chariot was made ready. And Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot. And they went out against Jehu, and met him in the portion of Naboth, the Jezreelite. And so they're like, all right, we'll go meet him ourselves. And then this happened to be the region that belonged to Naboth, right? The man that was put to death by Jezebel for not giving his land to Ahab. And it came to pass when Joram saw Jehu that he said, is it peace, Jehu? And he answered, what peace? So long as the whoredoms of thy mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many? And Joram turned his hands and fled. So at that point, he realized, yeah, I'm cooked. This guy, Jehu, is not coming for peace. And he's probably coming for me right now. Because remember, Jehu was the captain of the host. So it says here, so Joram turned his hands, meaning like he basically turned the chariot, that he whipped them, you book it, go the other way. And fled and said to Ahaziah, there is treachery, O Ahaziah. So basically he was yelling like treason. And Jehu drew a bow with his full strength and smote Jehoram between his arms, and the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot. So basically, Jehu shot him in the chest with an arrow, and boom, he was done. He died. Then Jehu said to Bidkar, his captain, take up and cast them in the portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father, the Lord Yahweh laid this burden upon him. So basically, remember when we used to serve this guy's father Ahab, this is the burden the Lord said against Ahab. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, saith the Lord Yahweh. And I will requite thee in this spat, saith the Lord. Now therefore take and cast him into the spat of ground, according to the word of the Lord Yahweh. And to put it more plainly, right in the NLT, it says, I solemnly, and this is what the Lord was saying as a response to Jehu, Jehu's compliance in the murder of Naboth. I solemnly swear that I will repay him here on this plot of land, saith the Lord, for the murder of Naboth and his sons that I saw yesterday. So throw him out to Naboth's property, just as the Lord said. And then that's what they ended up doing. And, but when Ahaziah, the king of Judah, saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house. So when he saw, he said, I ain't got no part. No. So he tried to book it too. And Jehu followed after him and said, smite him also in the chariot. So shoot him too. Right. And they did so at the going up to Gur, which is by Ibleam. And he fled to Megiddo and died there. And that this being Ahaziah. So now at this point, at the hands of Jehu, Joram, the king of the northern kingdom, has been put to death. And Ahaziah, the king of the southern kingdom, has also been put to death. So now we have two kings here that have been put to death, taken out, right in the same day. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his sepulchre with his fathers in the city of David. And the sepulchre being like a tomb or burying place. And in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. This is just like for record's sake. And when Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it. And she painted her face and tired her head and looked out at the window. It's just like women do today. They put on makeup and, make themselves look all kinds of ways. So she's sitting pretty out looking at this window. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, had Zimri peace who slew his master? And, this portion is sort of, we know what happened to Zimri, right? We knew who Zimri was. He ended up conspiring against the king and slew him, right? And so here, and obviously they knew that as well. They knew that. So here, the sense you get when you read this along with the other translations is that she is now, because of what Jehu just did, referring to Jehu as Zimri, because he did a similar thing, right? So had Zimri peace who slew his master. Now, to put it more plainly, like before, if we read this in the NLT, for example, or even in any other translation, like NIV, for example, it says, as Jehu entered the gate, she asked, have you come in peace, you Zimri, you murderer of your master? As here it says, was there peace for Zimri who murdered his master? So it's like on the one hand, it sounds like she's saying Zimri, who ended up slaying his master, did he have peace? He didn't. He actually ended up, dying. I don't remember exactly, if Zimri is if he was the one who actually basically took himself out. Let's see here. And Zimri went and smote him, thus Zimri da. Yep. Okay. So and the people that encamped heard say Zimri hath conspired. All right. Yeah. So it was Zimri. So Zimri, we know what happened. Right after he ended up slaying the king, he basically killed himself in the palace, right? Having it be burnt with him in it because he was surrounded and he knew that he was going to be taken out anyway. So here she's likening Jehu onto Zimri to say, like, one case, did Zimri have any peace who slew his master? And in the other case, she's referring to Jehu as Zimri, like, have you come in peace, Zimri, right? Who murdered your master, similar to how Zimri murdered his master. All in all, she's not happy with him, and she kind of knows, well, she should have known where this is going. And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs, right? So they basically gave him the signal, like, yeah, we down with you. And he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trode her underfoot. So when they threw Jezebel out the window, she basically, fell and died, right? Her blood splattered, and Jehu trampled on her with his horses, right? The hooves of his horse. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. And when they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. So most of her body was gone. And they're like, yo, wow. Therefore they came again and told him. And he said, this is the word of the Lord Yahweh, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of. In the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel. Right. So that region, right, which is basically that belonged to Naboth. Right. This was also prophesied, and we can get that too in 1 Kings. But when Jezebel was to die, her flesh would be eaten by the dogs over there. And the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field, in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, this is Jezebel. So she's going to be unrecognizable, right? Her carcass, the remains of her body is going to be on the earth openly, for all to see within that portion in Jezreel, to where she's going to be unrecognizable. And so I'm going to get that real quick. This is in 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 20. And this is when the Lord told Elijah to go and confront Ahab concerning that murder of Naboth. And Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O my enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and I will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel, like we just read. And I will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord Yahweh, saying, the dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. And what did we just read? We just read that the dogs ate Jezebel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. And so going back to 2 Kings, the 9th chapter, right, wrapping it up here, we now see the fulfillment of what was prophesied against Ahab here, and Jezebel, right, in some degree being fulfilled here, right? That was spoken by the word of the Lord by Elijah the prophet. And so, with that brings us to the end of 2 Kings, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.